everyone, welcome to the second session of our Refugee Solidarity Week event. We have some amazing content waiting for you today. We're going to have talks with the author of The Lightless Sky, Gulwali Passarlay, and one of the performers in the Phosphorus Theatre, Syed Najibi, as well as some brilliant content from our lovely volunteers. Me and my friends are really excited, and we really hope you enjoy this session of today.
I think we've started recording now.
Yes, I could see that, yeah.
Awesome. So, good afternoon. I'm so excited to do this Gulwali with you.
Thank you, Mary.
Just so that we are clear with our viewers, I know this month is about Refugee Week month. It's a solidarity month for everyone in the whole wide world to talk about the refugee issues, what are refugees, and what kind of struggles we pass through. But not only that, the main thing is the contribution of refugees and economy and overall empowerment of refugees all over the world. And this year's Refugee Week, I think it's celebrated under the slogan "Imagine," right? What are we trying to imagine?
Yeah, great. So basically, Refugee Week is usually celebrated in the UK as well as in most countries in the world during June, and it's because the Refugee Day is on the 20th of June, and so usually people have a whole week of activities to celebrate the contribution of refugees, to understand our struggle. So this year, theme last year was about displacement, and the year before was about youth and so on. So this year is about imagine. We are trying to imagine a better world. We are trying to imagine a more peaceful world. We are trying to imagine, we dare to imagine a different world, because now we see with the global pandemic and the world has changed in so many ways. So we are trying to think, and I think it's quite good because usually the Refugee Week, we have a lot of activities and a lot of things happening in person. So this is the first time perhaps things are done online, things are done through technology. So we are trying to imagine how we could overcome this struggle, but at the same time, how do we imagine a better world for refugees and people who are displaced, and how do we think differently about the issues and challenges that we have at hand?
Amazing. One thing is very important right now is there's a lot of solidarity happening in the whole wide world because of this current pandemic of COVID-19. And a lot of people are currently struggling, even when they're on their own shelter, with their own family, even though you can't meet people. Then we have a lot of means. We're very fortunate. We've got a shelter, we've got people, we've got a community that are supporting us. But a lot of refugees globally might not be privileged or are not privileged to actually even have just a clean water next to them, so that they need to wash whenever they touch something that we take for granted right here. How is the current pandemic reflection on what's going on in the whole wide world's refugee crisis right now?
I think that's a very good point. So basically, there are about 70 million displaced people in the world. There are about, out of the 70 million, about 25 million are refugees. The rest are internally displaced in their own countries. And the problem we have, so with this pandemic, has taught us that we had to socially distance ourselves, we had to clean ourselves, we had to wash our hands and have soaps and all these basic necessity of cleaning toiletries and stuff like that. So for refugees, particularly in camps, like, there are refugees stranded in Kenya, there are refugees in Greece and elsewhere in the world, in Pakistan, Iran, Jordan, in Lebanon. They struggle. I mean, they struggle with food. They struggle with. So I've been reading stories and seeing stories in Greek islands where refugees are housed in camps, where they just basically have one running water tap for like 4,000 people. So how do you socially distance there? And then they have so many people in overcrowded tents and containers. So the things that we take for granted, being able to socially isolate ourselves, being able to wash our hands and have soap, these things they don't have. So we shouldn't take it for granted. And I hope this pandemic, it's terrible what's been happening. Lots of people have lost their lives. Over 300 or so thousand people have lost their lives. And there are millions who have been infected with the virus. And in a sense, what has happened in China, for example, it spread across the world, and nobody's immune from the virus. Even our Prime Minister in the UK had it. So I would hope that now we realize that when you are in these kind of situations, because of your circumstances, you have no choice but to protect yourself or to make necessary arrangements. So there are people who are stranded at home. I mean, I'm stranded in Denmark for the last 3 months. I can't travel. So when it comes to refugees, they don't have the luxury or the choice to be able to make this decision. People are forced to flee. And so I hope people will be more compassionate, more kind, and to think and imagine how it feels like to be a refugee. So maybe now people had a chance to think and reflect, because a lot of people have been sitting at home. Because in the past, because people think it's happening somewhere else, it's not happening to us, it's fine. The only way the refugee makes news is when people attempts to come to the UK through the English Channel and small boats. And then that's very negative news, particularly in the right-wing media. I mean, Nigel Farage will go and stand there saying, look, these guys are invading us. And then when trains are delayed at the English Channel, at the Euro Tunnel, because of demonstration or because of some refugees got killed or whatnot, then that is when it becomes news. It's not a news when there are people stranded in the Greek islands, when people are stranded in Bosnia, in Serbia, in Macedonia. People are put in camps in Hungary, and people are struggling all over the world in refugee camps, and as well as in conflict areas like Afghanistan, Syria, Eritrea, Sudan, and so on. So people don't really see it as close. It's not an everyday news. So I hope now it has given us an opportunity to think and to reflect in responsibility and how we need to play a more constructive and helpful role in supporting these people who are fleeing for their safety, who are seeking protection. They're human beings. Right now, everything we can't protect. And when you're in conflict, you do the same thing.
Interesting. And one thing we take for granted is the skill sets, the wealth, the wisdom, the knowledge a lot of refugees bring, the cultural diversity, the beautiful talent that refugees bring with them. What do you say about that?
That's indeed. So basically, so we should not only welcome refugees because they bring skills and they will contribute to our society and our economy, but we will welcome them because it's the right thing to do. It's our moral and legal obligation to help people who needs help. It's their human rights to claim asylum. But I definitely think it's been overlooked in the UK. Asylum seekers are not allowed to work. I have friends who are doctors, engineers, accountants, really scientists, people in have knowledge and experiences, but they're not allowed to work, and they have to live actually on £5 a day. They have to live on £36 a week. Now, a few days ago, there's been increased by 26 pence a day to about £39 a week, which is very insulting. I mean, these are people, they want to have their dignity. They want to work. They want to contribute to society and the economy to provide for their families, but the government doesn't allow them. And people have this idea that, when refugees come here, asylum seekers come to our country, they take our jobs, they take our benefits. Well, that's not true. You can't work until you have your status. And then it's also very difficult to find jobs and opportunities being refugee and struggling with immigration and all sorts of other, discriminations and racism. And then at the same time, you can't get benefits. So you have no access to benefits unless you get your status. And that could take years. I mean, it took me 5 years to get my refugee status. There are people who are waiting for over 10 years to get their status. So sometimes people don't realize this. And recently there was in Parliament, there was in a select committee, the Prime Minister was questioned about how there are some people in the country who does not have access to public support, public finances. And he was shocked. But there are over 100,000 people who come to the UK, for example, through spouse visas, through other means. They're working in the UK, they're paying taxes. But now because of the pandemic, they can't get sick pay, they can't get any benefits, they can't get any universal credit, they can't get any support because they have no access to public funds. And so the government has been very hostile. I mean, the hostile environment is a real thing. We saw it with the venerable generation. We see it with the whole Brexit debate and discussion. But I think, yes, that's something we need to discuss, that refugees brings experiences. They're creative people. They have, I mean, if you're in a room where you're making decisions, if everybody have the same perspectives, everybody looks the same, everybody have the same education, then the decision made will not be as a quality, as a diversity. When you have different groups of people coming together and having their experiences and expertise, sharing and trying to come up with solutions, and the outcomes will be much better, because the more opinions, the more perspectives, the better. Because a lot of the time, people just don't realize that, we have ideas, we are humans at the end of the day, and that's sometimes what is missing. And I'm trying to, in the last 8 or 10 years, I've been trying to campaign and advocate for refugees' rights, because I want to humanize the debate. And when I wrote the book as well, was the reason to write the book or to share my story was to through storytelling, to challenge people's attitudes, but also to change people's minds and people's hearts, to say, look, we are ultimately human beings. We need help and we need support. And as a human being, you should give us that. And the least you could do is, to just show us kindness. I mean, a lot of the time people have this negative perceptions of refugees and asylum seekers without even meeting one. So we're not dangerous. We are not criminals. Good and bad people exist everywhere, but those who flee for their safety, they come to Britain, to Europe, to the rest of the world, they come with hopes and they come with aspirations. And a lot of the time we just block their aspiration, we shutter their hopes. And that's not the world that I want to imagine. And actually it's been happening since the last 12, 13 years I've been in Britain. I have seen a lot of young people who lost hope, who have lost their ambitions to be aspirational, who, because of the hostile environment, because of the lack of their immigration status, I had friends who used to translate for me, now are either deported, are detained, are destitute. There were some really talented young people who have not made it far in life because they did not get the right support and help, and the Home Office treated them inhumanely, unfortunately.
Yeah. On your book, The Lightless Sky, you've touched about your journey, and you've owned your story in a way that a lot of people really never had the chance, or maybe not have the knowledge to actually just articulate themselves the way you do. And what was the message that you want to convey?
So the Lightless Sky came about in 2015. And before that, I was doing a lot of activism and activities. So I did a TEDx talk in 2014 in Manchester, and that led to somebody writing to me, wanting to help me to write this book. I never really had an intention of writing a book. I think being an Afghan, being from my parts of the world, you want to keep things to yourself. I don't want to discuss with my brother, family, what has happened to me. So, but I thought it was important because I've read and seen so many books about refugees written by journalists, by academics, by other people with all good intentions, I'm sure. But there were not many books written by refugees themselves with their own perspectives and owning the story and telling it as the way they want to tell it, rather than being. So I wanted to convey a sense of that I had a life before I became a refugee. So the book is 120,000 words. It's about my childhood. It's about my family. It's about the war that has happened that led me to flee, in the situation and circumstances in which I was forced to flee. And then the journey itself, which took over a year at the age of 12. And I was mistreated by authorities across Europe. I was in prison. A lot of these things people just have no idea. So I explained all the journey, the experiences, the struggles, the hardships, and also the act of kindness along the way. And when I go to the UK, the circumstances I found myself in, where the Home Office just mistreated me again, and just thought of me as a criminal, as a suspect, as a liar. I was
and that's
dehumanized.
When you were only 12 years old, right? If I'm correct.
When I go to the UK, I was 13, so it took me a year. So when I was 13, my age was not believed. My nationality was not believed. So there was this system of disbelief. And so the best way I could describe the asylum system in Britain is that you are guilty and you had to prove yourself innocent. And I don't know how you do that against the all-powerful Home Office. Because once the Home Office put your credibility under question, there's very little you could do to challenge it.
I agree. With I know we're meant to do this for 20 or 30 minutes. So, but we're having a long interview with Destar TV soon, which you promised, right?
Yes, I have, and I look forward to that.
So for now, I wanted to on the Solidarity of Refugee Week, what message would you like to tell young people, young refugees all over the world, but especially refugees here in the UK that wants to hear that positive message about how you can really be a very impactful member of the community that we live in?
Sure. I just want refugees to see that I was in their situation and I had the same struggles that they go through, the learning the language, other barriers to integrations and opportunities and being able to go to school. And I had all the similar struggles and challenges that they may experience who are newcomers. So I understand their situations, I hope. And I would want them, I never imagined writing a book being published in 6 countries in 7 countries in 6 languages. I've never imagined, I was one of the 8,000 torchbearers. I carried the Olympic torch in 2012. I've traveled to 20 countries in the last 5 years. I've done 300 or so talks. I have met really cool people like Angelina Jolie and people at the UN and the EU level. all these things I've never really thought. I mean, I went to Manchester University to do a politics degree, which I did not thought was possible. I didn't think, I was a shepherd in Afghanistan. Although my father was a doctor, but I was a shepherd, and I didn't imagine that one day I'll be able to finish school, get my GCSEs. English is my fifth language. I did that in 2 years, went to college, did my A-levels, which was a real challenge. It was very, very difficult. And I spent 3 years, a lot of hard work and emotions and in tears and sleepless night to get my politics degree. And then I went on to do my master's at Coventry a few years ago. And so all this thing has happened because I had the right guidance, support, and help around me. I had really positive and encouraging people. So I would say to refugees to not give up, stay hopeful, stay positive, be around the right people, and continue, reading and learning, learning the language and understanding the culture and doing. I want us to be engaged. I want us to be active. So from a very early on in school, I was very active. When I left school, I had like over 60 certificates of achievements because I was part of everything. I got myself involved in the school life, and then I went to college, and I was also very involved with the student body and so on. And then I won like an excellence award for the contribution that I made to the sixth form college. And I won so many awards. One was that I was a student of the year. I won a distinguished medal for being a student of the year. And so all these things, to be honest, I'm not very smart. I'm not very clever or intelligent. It's just that I work extremely hard. I know getting my 5 GCSEs, or actually I got 10 GCSEs, all ETCs. It was not easy, but I got a lot of positive help and encouragement from my teachers. People believed in me. So I want refugees to be around people who believes in them. And I want them to not, being a refugee, just a legal status. It shouldn't determine it does determine your situations and your success and achievements and your kind of future, but it shouldn't. That's just a legal thing that you have a piece of paper. You're more than that. You are a human being. You are a brother. You are a father, or whatever. You are a sister. You are a mother, and so on. So
you're more than the status.
Exactly. You're more than the legal label that is put up on you. And also my message to our allies and our friends, it's very important to show solidarity with us, to be not really, I don't think like we need empathy, but we need sympathy. I want them to understand our situation, not see us as a victim, but see us as survivors, and help and support us in overcoming our challenges, because there is so many adversity that we face on our journeys, as well as in the UK and in the rest of the world. So I want our friends and allies to kind of support us and help us. I want people to be actively engaged in the discussion, to write to the MPs about refugee issues. If there is something wrong happening, I want us all to campaign for safe and legal routes for refugees to come to the UK. So there is things that we could do. And I would definitely encourage people to read The Lightless Sky, read other stories of refugees. If there's any other books, watch films, understand what's happening, check out the organization that supports refugees and asylum seekers. Be aware, be informed, be educated, and try to go out and spread the message and the stories of these people, because we need to humanize the debate around refugees and migrations and asylum and protection. Because at the moment, the hostile environment and the people who are the loudest are the right-wing media and the right-wing politicians, and people, unfortunately, they're a minority, but they have the strongest voices. We need to come together, and we really need to challenge the kind of hierarchy in the system that we have in the UK and also in Europe when it comes to refugees. We need to own our voices, we need to own our story, and we need to tell how we see it fit. So I thank you for the time, and I hope it's been useful. I encourage people to go and do their research and to help and support and volunteer local refugee charities, local organizations, volunteer, befriend, mentoring. All these small things helps. And so I wouldn't be where I am without the help and support of my teachers, my social workers, my friends, the people who befriended me, the people who mentored me. So every little, as they say, every little helps. And so I will really encourage everyone to get involved and to participate and to be active in their communities, from refugee backgrounds as well as non-refugee backgrounds, so we can work together and to move forward, and we could imagine a better world together.
Amen. On the Solidarity Week, Imagine, thank you for our invite, Gulwali Passarlay. I wish you all the best of luck. If people wants to buy the Lightless Sky, where can they find it?
Thank you. So they can get it on Amazon, they can get it on Waterstone, as well as other local bookshops. And I really would appreciate people reading my story and hoping to change the world for better.
Amen. All the best. Until next time. Thank you very much for today.
You too. Thanks so much, Mary.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks to Gulwali for his enlightening and heartening talk. Now we have a very, very interesting video made by our volunteers that I'm sure you will love. Thanks to our volunteers for this very wonderful work. Now we'll have a talk with one of the performers in the Phosphorus Theatre, Syed Najibi. Enjoy.
Welcome, Syed. It's nice to be interviewing you for this. Before we get into Phosphorus Theatre, could we know a bit about who you are?
So my name is Syed Najibi, and I came from Afghanistan as an unaccompanied minor at the age of 14. And yeah, so I arrived in the UK as an unaccompanied minor, and I am still an asylum seeker in the UK. And I'm also a student at University of Queen Mary. I'm studying sustainable energy engineering. And obviously on the other side, I work with Phosphorus, which involves me being one of the actors in the company, as well as a spokesman for the company, and also a facilitator. So I lead workshops with the rest of the team, and these workshops are led for different groups, from local authorities and professionals to ESO students. So it's different groups. So I do that as well with Phosphorus, and yeah, that's kind of who I am.
Okay. Well, I mean, this is a very interesting story that you have. Can we know a little bit more about what Phosphorus Theatre actually is?
So Phosphorus Theatre started back in 2015. So Kate, one of the artistic directors of the company, used to be a support worker in one of the housing projects in North London and Harrow, which was supported by this organization called Paiwan. So it was for unaccompanied minors, or for unaccompanied minors. So it was a housing project, and Kate was the key worker. And so these guys were talking about like doing drama and sharing their stories. So the stories of what unaccompanied minors go through getting to the UK, and also in the UK, going through the system, so the asylum system, as well as educational system, care system, and all those different things that we have in the UK. And Kate overheard them talking about this, and Kate has a background in drama and arts. So she's got a degree, and at the moment she's doing her PhD in drama and arts. So that idea, so it started from there. So they were like, oh, we want to tell our story, and Kate was like, okay, so this is good, like, okay, I think I can help with this, and I can lead this, I can lead you the way. And it started from there. And then so we for the first production, we came together, so in this living room, started, so Kate's mom is a writer for ITV, so she writes for Annadale. And then she was there as well in one of the workshops, and was, just like playing games and like telling our stories. And I wasn't there at that moment, but yeah. So then I heard about it, and I was like, oh, this project. One of my friends used to live in that house, and I was like, oh, this project sounds good, and I want to be involved in it as well. So I met Kate, and it all started from there basically. And then we did our first production called Dear Home Office, which we took to Edinburgh Fringe Festival. And then after that, we did another production called Dear Home Office, Still Pending. And then our most recent one was called Pizza Shop Heroes, which had about 50 shows all around the UK. So we toured all around the UK. So yeah, so that's how Phosphorus started and came about. Okay.
No, this is really interesting, and especially the names of the plays, such as Home Office, and I'm just trying to imagine what kind of settings it was describing. So what does, if I had an unlimited time, I'd actually ask an unlimited number of questions now. but one question that I have here, which I think is interesting, and you're welcome to answer it if you want. What does homeland or home mean to you?
I mean, that is, for somebody like me, that is a very interesting question. Because before I went to Afghanistan back like last year, home, I always imagined home or homeland being Afghanistan, right?
Yeah.
So always like, like Afghanistan is my homeland and that's home. But when I went back to Afghanistan last year, it was a different story because you're there as a tourist rather than being someone from there. That's how it feels, like
Yes.
everything is so different, and you're like, you don't know what's going on. All the children that you've seen before you came, and everybody's grown now, and it's like it's a completely different world. So it didn't feel like home. It's like you feel like a tourist. But when you come to the UK, and like when I'm like now in the UK, living in the UK doesn't feel like home most of the time because of the hostile environment.
Yes.
Because of what we face in the UK, like being who I am and what we go through in the UK, is most of the time you don't feel like this is where you belong,
No.
this is home. So it's, yeah, like it, I would say I'm still figuring out, where do I belong?
Yes.
Do I belong to Afghanistan or do I belong to the UK? Where is home?
Yeah.
But yeah, like for me, like personally, ideally, or what I want, or what I feel is home is London, always. It's home, London.
Okay.
London is where home is, basically.
And do you in general like being in London?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I
That was my own question.
absolutely love London. Because I've got all my network, my friends, obviously my university, so yeah, London. I love London, and and the fact that it's like multicultural, it just makes it so much better than a lot of places in the world.
Yeah, I guess. Another interesting question about words and their meaning. How would you describe the word refugee?
Again, like refugee, for me, refugee is someone who is in search of their human rights, right?
Yeah.
In search of safety, in search of having a safe life and having a safe future for themselves, as well as their families, their future families, their kids. So refugee is someone who's seeking safety, who's looking for safety, who's just in search of achieving or getting their human rights.
Okay. Interesting. Actually, this is a really good question. It's one thing that I've been wondering myself, being in Brussels, and I'm in Brussels in Belgium, and there are also refugees here. How, if you want to answer this question, how can people help refugees during quarantine? Would you have any advice on this, or do you know?
So it's obviously a very tough time for everybody. It's like literally, every single person, almost every single person in the world is facing a tough time right now because of the global pandemic, obviously. But especially for refugees, in my opinion, it's even more challenging. And that is because of, the background or where we come from. People don't have access to good healthcare or, to food, or in a lot of places, people don't even have enough food. So refugees or people like myself always have those thoughts about within themselves, like, as well as thinking about myself, I'm always thinking about my family and back home as well, like what would be going on over there, like how would they survive without food or without working or without good healthcare. So it adds extra pressure or extra worries on refugees and in different parts of the world. So people can do basic things, you know, like just being kind, which should be the case always, not just because of this global pandemic, but always this should be the case, you know, like just be kind. You know, it doesn't matter if somebody comes to you, lives in your country and they look different, that should not stop you being kind, you know.
Exactly.
That is the basic thing that everybody can do, and it's not asking for much. You know, you see somebody in the street, you see they look different, you see they're struggling, you can give them a hand if you can, you know, or like if you can't give them a hand, just be nice to them. That's good enough, you know. For me, so if I see someone in the street and they look at me or smile at me in a kind way, that makes my day, you know. That's like that makes me feel welcome. That makes me feel like, okay, this is, you know, this is lovely. This is, you know, this is like, this is the place I want to be.
Exactly.
And big things, you know, like in the UK at the moment, what we have is, so asylum seekers don't get enough money, weekly allowance, so weekly payment to live on. It's £35 something at the moment that they're getting, which is not good enough. And recently it was increased by 20p a day, which is obviously not much. So there's what I'm saying is there are a lot of petitions going on around on social media, so people can start, you know, signing those to help. So these petitions are asking for the Home Office to increase the payment, or for the government to increase the payment for asylum seekers, so they have enough money to live on. So those are the things that everybody can easily do. You know, you can easily, everybody is on social media, like almost everybody in the world. So you can go on social media and sign those petitions. And, you know, more general things like, you know, you see a refugee in your neighborhood, just, you know, help them with whatever you can. You know, if you can give them food, if you can spare them food, you know, like obviously not now, but in the future when this coronavirus is over, you can invite them around your house and you know, learn about their culture and teach them about your culture. Doesn't matter wherever or whichever country you're from, wherever you live.
What advice would you give to a newly arrived refugee? This is a really difficult question, actually.
It's a difficult question, but it's a very, very good question, because I need, like, someone having the experience, I needed that, you know, and I see a lot of people in the community who need that, that advice from someone who's had the experiences. And I would say, you know, when you arrive in a new country, it's always going to be different to where you left. So the first thing you should know is that you're safe, you know, and you're safe, and this is the time to start thinking about your future. And obviously you can't forget the past, but now your focus should be on the future. And in order to have a good future, there are certain things that you need to do. And one of the main things is choosing the right path, right? The right way to go there, to lead you to a future where you're gonna have a good life, where you're gonna achieve the goals that you left your family, your country, your people for, which is having a good life, which is having a good future. So, and choosing the right path, there are things involved, and one of the things is choosing the right company, you know, choosing the right group of friends, and being careful about who you trust and who you hang out with, and never forget where you come from. Never forget where, you know, where you come from. That's one of the things that I see people in the community most of the time forget, you know, like, oh, they forget where they come from, and then they start. So, because obviously, for example, coming to the UK, it's a free country. You can do whatever you want, but you have to be very, very careful. Like,
Yes,
it's all good that
exactly.
you have all those rights. It's brilliant, but you need to know how to use it, and you need to know how to use it in a way that it benefits you and your future and your family and the community where you live.
Exactly.
You know, because it shouldn't be all about getting. You have to think about giving it back as well, which we always do. You know, we always give back to the communities.
Yeah, and I guess that principle goes for everybody, right? Not just refugees.
Yeah, yeah.
I can see that in a lot of time in the media and in society, this pressure is often put on immigrants and refugees to show that they are giving back to the community. And this is a principle that applies to them, and it applies to everybody, in my opinion, yeah. So yeah, we should all give back, and we should all give back to our local societies and to other human beings, as you said really well. Your play, Dear Home Office, was nominated for the Amnesty Freedom of Expression Award. Well done. Yeah. Congratulations.
Thanks.
What were you feeling after having achieved such a great accomplishment?
At that time, because we were relatively new to the industry, I would say, yeah, and it obviously it was a very, very big achievement, and it was like almost unbelievable, because like we're going to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. If you've been there, there are like thousands, not even hundreds, thousands of shows going on at the same time, and to be shortlisted from those many shows, you know, that shows something. And I guess that the reason for that was, you know, just the work that we do, you know, and the group of people we are. It's like it's not easy for to be an asylum seeker, to having an interview and to going through the interview process with the Home Office, and at the same time you're doing a show. At the same time you're in solidarity with your community. Like, you know, like it's obviously not an easy thing. So it was a very big achievement. But since then, we've achieved a lot, and we've achieved so much that, like, you know, every day it's a new goal. You know, like every day we set a new goal, and it's like every time, you know, with the new project we set a new goal. So after that one, so we started doing Pizza Shop Heroes, which I said, you know, we had about 50 shows all around the UK, and so that was another amazing achievement. But yes, it's all very good, you know, like doing the hard work, it's very tiring, but when you get that response, when you get that an achievement like that, it makes you want to do it even more and forget about all the tiredness that you've been through or you go through.
Yeah. And I guess it's the energy and the adrenaline that you get when you're doing good work.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, congratulations for that. As a refugee, how does it feel to be a performer at Phosphorus Theatre? I mean, you've said a lot of things already. But yeah, just if you have any other thoughts.
I mean, so the reason I started working with Phosphorus is, as I mentioned in the beginning, I'm training to be an engineer. I'm studying to be an engineer. So like doing what I do with Phosphorus is my passion, right?
Yeah.
And I use drama, I use art, I use performance theater as a tool to show my passion, right? And my passion is talking and spreading awareness about my community and about the problems that we go through as asylum seekers and refugees all around the world, not only in the UK. But our focus is more on the UK because obviously this is where we live, this is where we're from, and this is the system that we are aware of most. Yes. So my passion is to let every single person in the UK know that refugees, that all those negative things that you hear in the mainstream media all the time, that's not who we are, right? This is who we are, like, you know, standing here and doing this amazing work in the UK, contributing to the arts, to the culture of the UK, and drama performance art is obviously a very big part of the culture of the UK or England. So it's like, you know, we are not only here to take, we are here to give as well. And there are a lot of things that we can give back, and we are giving back already. So stop thinking in a negative way when you hear the word refugee or asylum seeker. So that's one of the main reasons I joined Phosphorus, and that's one of the main reasons why I do what I do with Phosphorus.
Yeah. I have one more question on this list, but not one more question in my mind. I have a million more questions, which I wish I had in limited time to ask. But there is one more question. I am aware you guys are currently in production for Strungout, which is to be released on Saturday, 20th of June.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about this film?
So this film, this is a very interesting one, because obviously all of our experience is doing live shows and performing in theaters, right? So this is something new for all of us, being on a film and like doing a film. So it starts, so in our shows so far, and in all of our productions, there is an instrument called kra, which is from Eritrea. And this one of the, not one of the boys, but like in the current show, one of the boys is from Eritrea. So he plays the instrument. And we've had it in all of our shows. So in this film, this kra goes missing.
Right.
And we are about to do a show, and the kra is not there.
Okay.
So the show can't go ahead without a kra, right? Because the kra is a big part of the show, because it's one of our actors' power, basically, being in the show and playing kra. And if the kra is not there, then he won't be able to perform in the same way. So that's the main thing in the story. And then it goes on to talk about, so we have this discussion about low expectations, which always happens with us, because so when I say low expectations from the system, as well as like in the arts, you know, like being refugee, people don't expect you to do well as, for example, somebody from the UK or somebody born English, right? Or born wherever they are. So we talk about that topic. So this is a topic that we always face as artists, as refugees, and even, you know, in our normal life, we face it. Like, people don't expect us to do well. Like, for example, our social workers, most of the time they expect you to not be as intelligent and not do so well in school. And when you do good at school, they get surprised. And it's like, why you're surprised? Do you think I'm stupid? Like, you know, I can do whatever other people can do. But here it's like, and we face this from our audience as well. So sometimes what we get is people come up to us after the show and saying, oh, I didn't expect that. In a way that, like, you know, I heard that, oh, this show is about refugees and refugee performers, so I didn't expect you to be that good. So then we talk about that topic in it as well in the film, and also about labels. So labels, you know, we are labeled as refugees rather than human beings, right? That is something that we always face, and no matter where we go. So it's like, so we talk about that in one of the scenes. It's like, you know, people label us like refugee artists rather than just saying an artist or an actor. They say refugee actor, or they say refugee show rather than saying a show about whatever. There's a refugee show about refugees. So it's like we talk about those labels as well. So yeah, that's the film that we have been working on.
Yeah. So that's it for my questions from my side. I mean, not really, but I can't ask him all right now. Do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to add?
I'm just going to say my meeting's been cancelled, so if you want me to ask him if he wants me to answer right now.
I think his time is over. So Kate is free now. She's saying if you want to ask questions.
I mean, my personal time is kind of over, but if there are any thoughts that you'd like to add in the end. Yeah, no, I'm so sorry.
No, it's my fault. I had another meeting that's just been cancelled.
Fine.
The other guy emailed me to say that he had some questions,
Okay.
but it's fine if there's no time.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, personally not for me right now.
Cool.
But if you have, do you have any final thoughts, Syed? And also Kate, if you'd like to add anything, please feel free.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
So yeah, final thoughts. I mean, you know, for people who are watching us, what I would say, which I always say to people, is stop treating people based or differently based on their race, religion, and you know, all those things that we have in our current society, you know, and start looking at people as human beings. That's you know, it's one of the biggest issues that we face right now all around the world, like people treating you differently because of the way you look, because of your beliefs, or because of the way you talk, and all these things that we have. So yeah, it's like, you know, spread love and show love to people rather than hate.
Yeah.
And let's come together and just be human beings.
Yeah. Thanks for ending on such a nice note. It was really good talking to you, despite the time constraints and this formal setting. And hopefully I'll get to learn more about you and what Phosphorus does in the future. And hopefully to one of your plays. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk to you. It's very nice to meet you.
Yeah, it was a pleasure for me. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Yeah. Hopefully, we will meet in person one day.
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Thank you. Have a good day. Cheers.
Bye.
Thanks to Syed for his inspiring story and encouraging talk. I personally loved it. Now we have a wonderful performance from one of our volunteers. Enjoy!
Hello everyone, I'm a refugee and I play oud for Human Rights Solidarity and Refugee Solidarity Week.
come to the end of our session of today. Thank you all for coming and being a part of this beautiful project. A special thanks to Gulwali, Syed, and our lovely volunteers for their participation. And also don't forget to follow us on our Instagram, Twitter and YouTube accounts. Stay tuned for the session of tomorrow at the same time. Goodbye!